Okay. So let's review a little Aramaic. Anybody okay with that? Okay, that's good. Okay, we did words last week. We're going to do phrases this week. Okay, we're going to one, two. Testing. Okay, we good. Okay, we did words last week. We're going to do phrases this week. Remember, we had learned some phrases and some verses in Aramaic, so we're going to just go over them again. I know you know them already, okay? But we're just going to review them, and we learned a catchphrase last week. Who remembers that catchphrase? Okay. Yes. Repetition brings revelation. So why do we go back and look at the Aramaic again, even though we're not really on it right now? Because the more that you drill it, the more that you say it, the more comfortable you get with it, and the more it finds a place in your heart and it finds a place in your mind. So is everybody okay with that? Okay. Inanna, Tharda. Inanna, Tharda. Oh, no, it'll come to you. Think about it. Inanna, Tharda. Wow. Give that lady a hand. I am the door. Very good. Inanna, Tharda. When Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the light, when he said, I am the door, he said, Inanna Tharda. Okay, that was good. Okay, Shalu, Wanet, Yablahun. Shalu, Wanet, Yablahun. Shalu, Wanyet, Yablahun. Anybody want to take a stab at it? Do I detect a little competition over here? As long as it's friendly and it doesn't get physical, okay? Yes, okay, that's the word shalu. So now what do we say about shalu? We said that shalu can be prayer, it can be meditation, right? Contemplation. It simply means to open yourself to God, to open oneself up to God or whatever it is that God wants to do. So now it's being used in a verse here. So it's shalu wa nedyab lahun. Say that with me. Shalu wa nedyab lahun. So we said that to shalu is to pray. And what's something else that you do when you pray? What are you doing when you pray? Yes, you're praying. But what are one of the things that we do in the stance of prayer? Yes. We ask. So what this is saying, this verse that Jesus quoted, it starts off with him saying, ask. So the first word is ask. Now come on, somebody take a stab at it, what we're saying here. Shalu wa net yablahun. Ah, yes. Ask, and it shall be given unto you. Okay, so let's go on with the rest of it. Beyuch wa, say that. Beyuch. Come on, get that guttural sound out. Beyuch wa teshkahun. Beyuch wa teshkahun. Seek, and you will find. Yes. You just said it in a different language. Okay. Kush wa net fatah lahun. Yes. Cush, Wanet, Fatah, Lahon. What's it mean? Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Very good, very good. Okay, that's good. You guys are getting it slowly, but you're getting it. Now, you know what? Last week, we looked at something that's a side topic, but it's really a very big topic. And we talked about genuine faith. And we talked about two heroes of the faith that Jesus invoked when he was in the synagogue in Nazareth. Now, we said there are how many aspects of genuine faith? Anybody remember? 3 aspects of genuine faith. Now, this is not a formula. This is just a way that we can kind of gauge and measure just where we are. What was the first one that we mentioned? In other words, for genuine faith, what was the first pillar, so to speak, that we mentioned? Mental assent, yes, or mental acknowledgement. And that simply means, what's going on here? Why are you smiling? Okay, so we said that there has to be 3 pillars to our faith. And the first one is mental acknowledgement, mental assent or mental acknowledgement. I believe. Now, you know what? We're all there. Everybody's there. We believe, but what did we say? We said that it had to be connected to something more than just thinking about it. You see, I could say, you know what? I need to get some exercise today. And then I could sit down and watch television. You see, I know what I need, but I'm not doing it. I'm not putting it into motion. I'm not doing anything about it. Does anyone understand what I'm saying? Okay, so with that mental assent, there has to be 2 things that are attached to it for it to turn into genuine faith. Can someone tell me what one of those things are? Okay, action is one. Okay, action is one way. A daily walk of trust, as Robin said. But yes, that's the word I was looking for. Obedience. Now, what we said last week was obedience is not the obedience of you adhering to a doctrine or a set of commands. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the kind of obedience that we're talking about. We're talking about an obedience that says, because I believe. You see, I don't just believe, but because I believe, there are certain things and certain places that my walk is going to take me, that it probably would not normally take me. And then we said the third thing is a daily walk of trust, as Robin just said. So those things have to work in unison with each other. I can't just say, well, I believe in God. Okay, that's great. But now, that belief in God is going to take me someplace to where I'm going to have to say, because I believe in God, I will do this. If my feet take me to something that needs to be done because I believe in God, then you know what? I need to do it because I need to walk what I think. Does that make sense to anyone? If I say I believe it, then that belief should affect every area of my life. And wherever that belief takes me, I need to become obedient to what it is that God is having me to do at that particular time. You know, it's amazing. I had a conversation with a brother last week, and he told me something that was really phenomenal that went on right during the service, and I didn't even realize it. I won't mention the brother's name, Eddie. And but Ed came to me, and he was excited, and he says, Pastor, you know what happened? I said, what? He says, during the service, this guy came upstairs, And he asked if we had a food pantry. And I said, no, we don't have a food pantry. And he says, because I'm really hungry. So now, you see, Eddie could have said, well, here's a list of resources, and I think they give out, I think the pantry's open on Tuesday. But you know what? The man had walked up to him, you understand? And said to him, I'm hungry. Yes, I'm hungry. So Eddie says, what kind of food do you like? And the guy says, I like Chinese food. So Eddie went out, found a Chinese restaurant, bought some Chinese food, didn't eat any on the way back, brought it to this other person who was hungry. And listen, Eddie had been here all day and hadn't eaten lunch, okay? So he brought it to this other person who said he was hungry, and he gave him the food. So now, do you understand what happened there? Eddie says, you know what? I believe in God. I believe in compassion towards others. But then a situation of compassion walked right up to him and looked him in the face. Now, he had a choice. He could have said, I believe in compassion, but look, I got something to do. And listen, I'm guilty. I've done that myself, so don't go on a guilt trip here, okay? But instead, you know what he did? He forgot about himself, his lunch. He forgot about everything, and yeah, we're talking about you, brother. He forgot about everything. He went out and he got food for this man. Do you understand? You see, that belief, that thing that's I believe, has to be connected to shoe leather. It has to be connected to actions in our life. So he bought the man the food, and this was a little funny, but so he gave the man the food, and so Eddie, he says, do you know about Jesus? And the man says something to the effect of, can you tell me about him after I eat? But see, here's what I'm telling you. What Eddie did, do you understand what I'm saying? What he did spoke about his belief. It informed, his belief was informed by what he did. Does that make sense to anyone? So that was real and genuine. Now that's the kind of faith that Jesus is looking for in his people. That's the kind of faith that we all have the ability to perform, so to speak. So first is mental assent, I believe, but it will always be followed up by an act of obedience that you will find yourself in a place that you will have to either say, yes, I will, or no, I won't. And then it's a daily walk of trust. That means, God, I trust you for tomorrow. I trust you for today. I know what things look like. I've looked at the accounting books. I've looked at the schedule. I've looked at what I have to do and what I don't have time to do. But God, I trust you with all of that. Daily, I trust you with that. I trust you with what I have. I trust you with what I don't have. I trust you with what I need. I trust you with what I don't need. I trust you. Now that's the beginning of what we're going to call genuine faith. Now, Jesus brought the Messianic vision to the people in Nazareth. Remember, we've talked about that for 3 weeks. He brought a Messianic vision to them. He told them the vision of the true Messiah. Now, he read from Isaiah 61, and he changed some things around. And listen, if anybody can change scripture around, it's Jesus, okay? That prophecy was about him, the Messiah. So he changed things around, but what he did, he changed the Messianic vision to fit who the Messiah truly was, as opposed to who these people kind of thought that it was. Do you remember? We talked about that. Now, he read from Isaiah 61. And what he read was, I'm going to read to you the first 8 stanzas in which he sums up his messianic vision. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me." Stanza 3, "to preach the gospel to the poor." Stanza 4, "he has sent me to heal the brokenhearted." Stanza 5, "to proclaim liberty to the captives." 6, "and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, and to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord." Now, in that, he summed up the mission statement of the Messiah. Now, Pastor, why are you saying that? Because, listen, if he's the king, then we're part of the kingdom. Do you understand what I'm saying? So these things that he's talking about right here, guess whose job it is to be a part of that? Yeah, you. But Pastor, you don't understand. I'm not a preacher. I'm not, no. I'm not asking you to be something that you're not. I'm simply asking you to be who you are. Listen, understand. You are unique. You are one-off. There is nobody in the whole universe that ever was like you or ever will be like you. God made every single person different, and he did it because he needs different people. He doesn't need replicas. He doesn't need you trying to be somebody else. He needs you being your best version of you. That's all he calls us to be. Because when you're the best version of you, you're everything that he wants from you. So he knows who you are. He knows what you can do. He knows what you can't do. He may even know what you're uncomfortable doing and put it right in your face so that you do it. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The very thing that you don't want him to do, he may do it. Now, you have to come to a place at that point. My faith, my belief system has brought me to this place to whereas I got to either walk it or I got to shut up. Do you understand? And yes, he will bring you there. And I thank God the times that he's brought me there. I thank God. You know why? Because when I did something that I really didn't want to do, when I was really a little uncomfortable doing something because, I didn't want to do it, but I knew that it was what I should do. When you do those things, it's like you graduate. No, really. When you do those things, it's like you go to another level. And it's hard to explain unless you've been there. But I say that to say that really, listen, obedience is a big thing. It really is a big thing. Because God's not going to humiliate you. He's not going to put you in a situation to whereas you tried to do something and it didn't work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's not going to do that. If he tells you to do something and you become obedient to do what he tells you to do, then you're going to graduate. You're going to graduate. Listen, if you ever felt stuck in a place, you ever feel that way, like you're trying, like it's a glass ceiling, like you're trying to get someplace, but it's like something that's holding you back? Okay, listen, I felt to myself, well, listen, maybe, and I'm just saying maybe, it may not be, but maybe there is something that God is telling you to become obedient to. And you're showing resistance. That's all I'll say. You're showing a little resistance, and maybe that's what he wants you to do. But for us to be an operating part of his messianic vision, then we're going to have to listen. And God, this is very uncomfortable for me to do. But because I believe, and because I genuinely believe that you brought me to this situation for a specific specific reason, and I genuinely believe that I sense you telling me to do something, I'm going to become obedient to that. And you know what? I'm going to walk this out and trust you. I'm going to walk this out and trust you. So now, the things that he said here are the things that will bring about the Messianic age. Say that with me. Messianic age in our lives. Do you understand that? The Messianic age in our life. This is the Messianic age, but I'm talking about us participating in that and being a part of the Messianic age. Now, stanza 3, he says, to preach the gospel to the poor. Let's just look at that for a second. To preach the gospel to the poor. Say that with me. To preach the gospel to the poor. Now, what did Isaiah mean by this? What was meant by this verse? Well, remember, Scripture was written in Hebrew. Okay, so in the Hebrew, the word poor is one of those words that can be spoken two ways. The word is abion, say that, abion or avion, one or the two. They mean two different things. Do you remember some time ago when we were looking in the Aramaic and we were looking at the letter, the second letter in the Aramaic alphabet? Anybody remember what it is? The second letter? Beth. Yes, good. And what did we say about that? If you recall, we said that depending on whether that reverse C, because it looks like a reverse C, depending on whether it had this little dot or not, would depend on how it was pronounced. Go back and get a note from the principal's office. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. So that bet, and remember we said Abba and Ava, same letter. One had the dot. One is Abba, meaning father, and one was Ava, meaning Ave Maria, Ava, mother. Yes, same letter, but the dot makes a difference. Well, that same dot makes the difference here. Avion means someone that may be impoverished, someone that doesn't have enough to eat. Abion has a different meaning. Abion means that someone that is, how shall I put it, poor in spirit. Remember the beatitude that we read some time ago? Blessed are the poor in spirit. So what that means is someone that recognizes the poverty, their own spiritual poverty. It probably would mean only someone who's had an encounter with God. Because the only way we can determine our own spiritual poverty is an encounter with God. Because when I see God and I see myself, I realize, wow, I need him. I need more of him. As the deer pants for the water, so my soul longs, hungers, thirsts after God. So that's what that word means, abion. It means someone who hungers and thirsts and just wants God and more of God. Okay, you know, the God that I got in this place today, that's going to only make me more hungry for him. You understand? I'm not going to go home and say, oh, that was enough. I'll be back next week. No. It means, you know what? I got to have some more of that. That was good. I got to have some more of that. So that word, abion, now, in Isaiah, he uses the word poor in the book of Isaiah 15 times. Now, 4 of the times, he mentions impoverished people. But the other times, he uses the word abion. So it's safe to say that when he's talking about preaching the gospel to the poor, yes, he was talking about preaching the gospel to maybe the impoverished. But, I mean, now think about this. You have someone that don't have enough to eat. You have someone that's lacking everything. The last thing you're going to do is to go up to that person and say, you know, let me tell you about Jesus. You want to preach to him? Buy him a Subway sandwich or Chinese food. Yes. Do you understand what I'm saying? You see, if someone is impoverished, to preach to them, it's what Eddie did last week. Okay? He didn't open his mouth about Jesus. But you know what he did? He proclaimed to them Christ. He fulfilled their need. Does that make sense? He fulfilled their need. Now listen, folks. We live in a world where there's a lot of needy people. A lot of needy people. And because we're all unique, and we come from all different places, all walks of life, and we go in all different places, who better to meet those needs than us? Do you understand what I'm saying? Maybe God has you on your job because there's someone that really needs someone to talk to. There's someone that's really going through it, and they don't have anybody to talk to. And guess what? God may bring that person right up to you. And it's up to you at that point to become obedient. So, to preach the gospel to the impoverished is to meet their needs. Okay? But he said to preach the gospel to the beyond. Now, in the early days of Christianity, there was a movement. And these Christians called themselves the Abionites. Say that, Abionites. And what that meant was, we thirst, we hunger after God. We know what Jesus is. We know why he came here. We had an encounter with him, and now we are thirsty after God. So, to preach or to proclaim or to bring good news to the Abionites is to help them or to bring more God to them. Do you understand? Now, how do you bring God to a person? It doesn't always have to be you talking to them. Like I said, it could be that Subway sandwich, or it could be sitting down with someone and explaining to them the more excellent things of God. Do you understand? Bringing them to a place of understanding of who they are in Christ and their position and what he's done for them specifically. So he talks about preaching the gospel to the poor. Now, there is a style of, how shall I put it, of writing that the Hebrew people have used, and it's called chiasm. You don't have to remember that, but say it with me anyway. Chiasm. Now, what it is you will have 1, 2, 3 stanzas, and then there will be encased in there will be a parable, maybe an Old Testament scripture, a healing miracle or something. But then underneath it will be reverse order the first 3 verses. Okay? Let me give you an example. Remember when Jesus went into the temple? Went to the synagogue? It said in the first verses, it said he went into the synagogue, that he stood up and he was handed a scroll. Okay, then this portion from Isaiah is spoken about, and what happens after that? It said that he handed it back, he handed the scroll back, and he sat down. You see? So that's called an encased parable or a chiasm. Like I said, you don't have to remember that word. But we have the same thing here. When we look at these 8 stanzas of what the Messiah, of the Messianic vision, we have a chiasm. Now we have what it says literally is this. It says, he has, stanza 4, to the brokenhearted, healing. Stanza 5, to the captive, freedom. To the blind, recovery of sight. And to the oppressed, freedom. So what you have is, in the Messianic vision, you have healing, freedom, healing, freedom. You see that? And he gets it through stanza 3 and stanza 8, to preach the gospel to the poor and to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. So there's a proclamation there of the acceptable year of the Lord and the preaching of the gospel that go together. So to sum up that vision, that Messianic vision, let's go to Mark chapter 12. Let me read something to you. Jesus sums up his Messianic vision right here. And I'll read it to you. Mark 12, I'm going to start to read in verse 28. And then it says, then one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning, perceived that he, meaning Jesus, had answered them well, and asked him, which is the first or the most important commandment of all? Jesus said to him, now in this he's summing up the Messianic vision, he's summing up the mission statement of the Messiah. The first of all the commandments is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment. And the second like it is this: you shall love your neighbor. You shall love your neighbor. You shall love your neighbor. Go ahead. As yourself. There is no other commandment greater than this. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. I don't know how to tell you this, but on this planet Earth, every image bearer of God is your neighbor. Everyone that bears the image of God is your neighbor. Now, you know what? You could live in a 35 family apartment building. Now, you know what? There will be people in that building that you don't like. There will be people that you probably really, really, really don't like. And there'll be people that you like. But now, step back. Now, if you were looking at your building on Google Maps, you know what? You would all take up the same portion of real estate, and every single one of them would be your neighbor. Every single one of them would be your neighbor. Listen, when you step back from the earth, guess what? We share with every other person on earth the same air that we breathe, the same water. Do you understand? The same food we interact with all over the world. Listen, those people are your neighbors. Now, I know that's a hard pill to swallow, because, you know, there's some people that you just want to dislike. I know nobody here knows what I'm talking about. But listen to me. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. For us to be a part of this Messianic vision, Jesus just said in Mark 12, he says, to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that you got to fall in love with every other person in the world. That's just impractical. That's just not how it works. But it does mean that we have to learn to be civil with other people. We have to learn how not to trash a person or a group of people because they don't agree with us on one point or the other. He said, love your neighbor as yourself. We looked at in the Aramaic that word love. And if you recall, there was a word ahib. Remember that? And Jesus was talking about loving your enemies. And that ruffled a lot of people's feathers. But what he was saying was, he wasn't saying, cook dinner for them and be in their house every day, et cetera, et cetera. What he was saying was, start with a little bit of kindling. And with that little bit of kindling, try to make some kind of fire. And at some point, if that fire grows, then put a little more kindling on it. He's saying, don't dismiss a person because you don't like that person. Did you hear what I said? Don't dismiss a person because you don't like a person. Some of the people that turned out to be my very best friends. Now listen to me. People that turned out to be my best friends, people that I treasure in my heart to this day. I didn't start out liking them. I'm just being honest with you. I'm a pastor. I'm being honest with you. If I can't bear my heart with you, who can I? I didn't like them. But I got over myself. Do you understand? Because that has more to do with me than it has to do with that person. Many times a person will be so much like you. Listen to me. That person will be so much like you that they just rub you the wrong way because they're saying things that you would say. They're using phrases that you would phrase. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, well, what I'm saying, get over that. That could be a hidden treasure. If you just get over it and at least give that person a chance, don't lock them out because you've decided that you don't like them. Give them a chance. That's all I'm saying. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about being a part of Yeshua's Messianic vision. Now, Jesus invoked two Gentile heroes of the faith last week, if you remember. So there were two people that he invoked. And they didn't like that. They didn't like that because even in the Hebrew Bible, these people were referred to as genuine people that had genuine faith. So when he invoked them, they didn't like it because even though God was showing the faith of these people, they were from outside of Israel. Do you recall? Okay. Naaman was a strong, powerful Syrian general. And the widow on the other end of the spectrum, and Jesus was very careful to choose this, on the other end of the spectrum was a widow that had nothing who lived in Sidon. And what he was saying when Jesus invoked these two heroes was this. He was saying, listen, your faith needs to be based on and just as strong as this person over here that's not an Israelite and the person all the way over here who is not an Israelite. What he was saying was this. Listen, you have to look sometimes outside of your group to get an accurate picture of where your faith is. Does that make sense to anyone? Now, when he invoked those Gentiles, he was showing that God works in many, many ways. You see that widow in Zarephath? God wanted to help that woman. So he told Elijah, okay, you know what? You want food? Then you've got to go to that widow over there, and I have instructed her, I have prepared her to feed you. Does that make sense? Now, what did God want to do? He wanted to help someone outside of Israel, so he sent someone from within Israel to go out and help that person. Do you understand that? There's times when God will call us outside of our comfort zone. Do you understand? Elijah probably wasn't all that happy going to Zarephath. He probably didn't even want to go. You know, we talked about the worldview at that time, and the worldview was the fact that a god only had power and sway in their own area. You remember that? So he told Elijah, get outside of the area, and I'm going to be with you anyway. And you're going to help someone, and that person is going to live. Do you remember? You remember Jonah? Why do you think Jonah jumped on a boat and tried to get out of Israel? He probably thought, you know what, if I can just get away from this place, then God won't have any sway over my life. And he's not going to make me go to those people I don't want to go to. But God, remember, God made fish, okay? And they're at his command too. You know, I'm going to ask if Trey would just play something, and we're going to